She called me a broke loser in front of my own grandchildren. She said it casually, like commenting on the weather. My son David just stared at his plate. They thought the old man was finished. They were about to learn that empires aren't built by cowards. If you're listening to this, subscribe to the channel, and let me know where you are watching from. My name is Robert. I built cities, 40 years in real estate. I carved my name into the skyline. But money attracts sharks, and the most dangerous shark I ever met was married to my son. The dining room was cold. David and his wife Sarah lived in a mansion that felt more like a museum. A crystal chandelier hung above us like a frozen waterfall. Expensive art covered the walls. I sat at the far end of the table. I was wearing my oldest gray sweater. The cuffs were frayed. It was my uniform now, the uniform of a broken man. The steak on my plate was thick. Expensive. It tasted like ash. This was the weekly ritual. The humiliation dinner. And tonight's performance was just beginning. "Daddy, can we go to Aspen for Christmas?" my granddaughter Emma asked. She was 9. David shifted in his chair. He always shifted when money came up. He cleared his throat, a nervous habit he'd developed since marrying Sarah. But it was Sarah who answered. Her voice was sharp. It cut through the quiet clinking of silverware. "Not this year, sweetie," Sarah said. She dabbed the corners of her mouth with a linen napkin. She didn't look at David. She looked straight at me. Her eyes were cold, calculating. "Money is very tight right now." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "Especially," she added, her voice dripping with poison, "with the extra mouths we have to feed." I kept my eyes on my plate. I swallowed the steak. It felt like swallowing stones. David tried to intervene, weakly. "Sarah, maybe now isn't the time." "When is the time, David?" she snapped. The mask slipped. The anger underneath was ugly. "We are bleeding money. The business is struggling. The market is terrible. And we have expenses. Significant expenses." She waved her hand around the room. A room filled with luxury. A room I had helped them buy. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the lie. 6 months ago, I started this act. I discovered Sarah trying to use my name, my company, Apex Realty, as collateral. A massive personal loan for her failing fashion line. I needed to see how deep the greed went. I needed to know if my son would protect me, or if he was completely under her spell. So I manufactured a crisis. My lawyer, John Harrison, helped. We let deals fall through. We made the stocks dip. On the surface, Apex Realty looked like it was crumbling. I traded my Mercedes for a used Toyota. I moved into their guest room. I became the quiet old man, dependent, weak. I had to know the truth, even if it destroyed me. Sarah sighed dramatically. She pushed her chair back. She walked to the sideboard and poured herself a glass of wine. She was enjoying this. "It's just so frustrating," she muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We're sacrificing everything." Then she walked back toward the table. She stopped behind Liam, my grandson. He was only 6. She rested her manicured hands on his small shoulders. Her voice was pitched for me. "You see, Liam," she said, her tone dripping with fake patience, "we have to be very careful with our money. Because some people, they don't plan ahead. They make mistakes." My blood ran cold. I knew what was coming next. She squeezed his shoulders. "Look at Grandpa Robert," she said. She gestured toward me with her wine glass. I froze. The fork halfway to my mouth stopped moving. "Grandpa Robert used to have everything. But now?" She laughed. It was a cruel sound. "He's a broke loser. He can't even afford his own dinner. That's why Mommy and Daddy have to work so hard, to make sure you don't end up like him." The silence was heavy. It pressed down on my chest. David stared at the tablecloth. He said nothing. He never said anything. My ears rang. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. I looked at my grandchildren. Liam looked scared. Emma looked embarrassed. Of me. The pain was sharp. Sharper than any business loss. This was my blood, my legacy, and she was poisoning them against me. I placed my fork down gently. The sound echoed. I looked at Sarah. She was smiling. A cold, triumphant little smile. She thought she had me. I said nothing. I just waited. I had been waiting for 6 months, but the real betrayal was still waiting in the shadows. The tension didn't break. It just simmered. Sarah seemed pleased. She had delivered the blow and watched it land. "Which brings me to the house, Robert," she said. Her tone shifted. "Brisk business. My house. the place where my late wife Margaret and I had raised David. It was filled with memories. It was the only thing left in my name, or so they believed. We've talked about this, Sarah continued. She tapped her fingernail on the table. Click, click, click. We need you to sign it over to us. We found a buyer. The capital tied up in that monstrosity is needed elsewhere. We need liquidity. They had been pushing this for weeks. The centerpiece of her narrative. The broke father finally contributing. I'm still thinking about it, I said quietly. My voice was raspy. I tried to sound old, tired. Thinking about what? Sarah's voice sharpened. Robert, there is nothing to think about. You live here for free. We feed you. We clothe you. She leaned forward. The least you can do is let us sell your home to keep our heads above water. It means a lot to me, I murmured. Margaret loved that house. David flinched. Mentioning his mother always made him uncomfortable. Margaret was a good woman, strong. She would have seen through Sarah in a heartbeat. Sentiment doesn't pay the bills, Robert, Sarah said coldly. Her eyes were like ice. And frankly, we don't have time for sentiment. She paused. The threat was coming. I braced myself. We need those papers signed by the end of the week, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Or we'll have to discuss other arrangements. The words hung in the air. A state-run nursing home, the place where people go to disappear. I looked at David, my son. He was pale. His hands were trembling. He was terrified of her. Dad, he said weakly, finally meeting my eyes. Please, just sign it. It's for the best. For everyone. Betrayal didn't always come with a shout. Sometimes it came with a whisper, a plea from a coward. I pushed my chair back slowly. I'm tired, I said. I think I'll go to my room. As I walked out, I felt Sarah's eyes burning into my back, climbed the grand staircase. Each step a reminder of the empire I built and the family I was losing. I thought it couldn't get worse. I was wrong. The next few weeks were a slow torture. Sarah was getting arrogant, more reckless in her cruelty. The next assault came through the children. Liam and Emma were the light of my life. Before the crisis, I picked them up from school every Friday. We'd get ice cream. It was our tradition. I arrived at the school that Friday as usual. I stood by the gate, waiting. The bell rang. Children flooded out. I saw Liam and Emma. I smiled, but before I could call out to them, Sarah appeared. She materialized out of the crowd, sunglasses covering her eyes. She grabbed their hands, pulling them toward her expensive SUV. It was parked illegally in the loading zone. Sarah, I called out. It's Friday. It's my day. She turned. Her expression was furious. She hadn't expected me to show up. She stopped walking. The noise of the playground seemed to fade. She tilted her sunglasses down, looking at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. The silence between us stretched, tight and brittle. Your days are over, Robert, she hissed. She leaned in close. I don't want you confusing them. Confusing them? We're just going to the park. It's not about the park, she spat. It's about the image. I won't have my children seen being picked up by a failure in a cheap car.
You are an embarrassment.
Liam tried to wave at me. Sarah yanked his arm, forcing him into the car. The door slammed shut. The SUV sped away. I stood there, alone on the sidewalk. The sun was shining, but I felt cold. So cold. The mask I was wearing felt heavy. It was starting to crack. I called David that night. I needed to hear him say it. I needed to know where he stood. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. Dad? Everything okay? His voice was distracted. I heard music in the background. A party, David. She stopped me from seeing the kids today. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She called me an embarrassment. At the school. There was a long silence. The music seemed louder now. Dad, he finally said, his voice strained. Sarah is just stressed. She's looking at the big picture. Apex is struggling. We have to maintain appearances. Appearances? My voice cracked. Or are you sacrificing me for your image? I couldn't believe this was my son. That's not fair, Dad. Things are tight. He sounded defensive. Weak. Sarah says we need to consolidate. She understands these things better than I do. He was parroting her words. It was devastating. She told the children I was a broke loser. David, does that sound like understanding? She apologized for that, David said quickly. Too quickly. She was stressed. Look, Dad, please just cooperate. It will be easier. He hung up. He hadn't apologized. He was lying for her. I was completely alone. The next phase of Sarah's plan was more sinister. Isolation. It started with Maria. Maria had been the housekeeper for 30 years. She helped raise David. She was loyal. She was family. I came downstairs one morning. The house was too quiet. I found Maria in the kitchen. She was crying, packing her things into cardboard boxes. Maria, what's happening? My heart sank. I knew the answer. Mr. Robert, she sobbed. She wiped her eyes with her apron. Mrs. Sarah let me go. She said the family couldn't afford me anymore. Maria looked down, ashamed, and she accused me of stealing. Stealing? Stealing? That's ridiculous. I felt a surge of anger. Maria was the most honest person I knew. I'll talk to David. It won't help, sir, Maria whispered, terrified. She told me if I didn't leave immediately, she would call the police. She said she found her diamond bracelet in my room. My blood ran cold. Sarah hadn't just fired her. She had framed her. Firing Maria was calculated. It removed my last ally in the house, and it showed me how far Sarah was willing to go. She wasn't just greedy. She was cruel. I felt helpless. I couldn't protect Maria without breaking character. Not yet. I promised Maria I would make this right. I paid her severance from my private account, the one Sarah didn't know about, the one John Harrison kept safe. The humiliations escalated. They were small, but constant. A slow drip of poison. At dinner, David and Sarah ate steak. I was served leftovers. Cold soup, stale bread. We can't waste food, Robert, Sarah said sweetly. We have to economize. David avoided my eyes. He just kept eating. The silence was deafening. A few days later, I was taking out the trash. Sarah insisted I do chores now. To earn my keep, she said. That's when I met Mrs. Davies. She lived next door, a woman with too much time and too much curiosity. She was pruning her roses, but her eyes were fixed on me. Robert, is that you? She called out, her voice dripping with fake concern. Hello, Clara, I said politely. She scurried over to the fence. Her eyes were bright with gossip. I heard about your troubles, Robert. Such a shame. A man of your stature, reduced to this. I nodded slowly. Times are hard. They must be, she whispered, leaning in. Her breath smelled like mint and malice. Sarah was telling everyone at the club that you're completely destitute, that you're sponging off them. She paused, checking if I was reacting. I remained still. She even said, Clara continued, her voice dropping lower, that you might have dementia, that you wander the house at night, confused. Dementia. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. Sarah wasn't just trying to take my money, she was trying to take my mind. She was building a narrative, a case. I realized then just how dangerous she truly was. The realization galvanized me. I couldn't just wait for her next move. I had to strike first. I called John Harrison. John, we need to accelerate the plan. She's spreading rumors about dementia. She's setting the stage for something bigger. I agree, Robert, John said, his voice tight. It's time to get some leverage. We need to look deeper into her activities. I need help, I said. Someone professional. I know just the man, John replied. His name is Miller. He's discreet and very thorough. Detective Miller was a private investigator. He looked like an accountant. Gray suit, tired eyes, but he had a reputation for finding the dirt everyone thought was buried deep. We met in a diner downtown, away from the polished surfaces of the suburbs. Mr. Harrison says you have a snake in your garden, Miller said, stirring his coffee. I have a viper in my house, I corrected him. I told him everything. The manufactured crisis, the humiliations, the rumors of dementia, the push for the house sale. Miller listened patiently. He didn't look surprised. Classic gold digger playbook, he said. They always escalate when they think the target is weak. What do you need? I need to know where the money is going, I said. And I need to know what she's hiding. I need a smoking gun. Miller nodded. He named his price. It was high. I paid him in cash. I'll start tonight, he said. She won't even know I'm there. The next few days were tense. I continued my act. The broken old man. But inside I was buzzing with anticipation. The hunt was on. Miller was good. He sent me updates every night. Encrypted messages. Sarah was busy. Very busy. She was meeting with lawyers, financial advisors, and someone else, a man, tall, tanned, expensive suit. They met discreetly, in hotel bars, restaurants downtown. If this story is keeping you hooked, drop a subscribe. It was Miller's next update that changed everything. He sent me photographs. I opened the file. My heart hammered in my chest. It was Sarah, and the tall, tanned man. They weren't discussing business. They were kissing, holding hands, laughing. The affair hit me hard, not because I cared about Sarah, but because I cared about David. He was a fool, but he was my son, and she was destroying him. His name is Mark Sterling, Miller's message read, a failed entrepreneur with expensive taste, and a history of relationships with wealthy women. The pieces clicked into place. This wasn't just about greed. It was about betrayal, a complete and utter betrayal. But we still needed to know where the money was. The affair was leverage for the divorce, but I wanted to ensure she couldn't touch the legacy I built for my grandchildren. I waited until David and Sarah left for a weekend trip. They didn't invite me. The house was empty, silent. Miller disabled the security system. We went straight to the home office. The office was Sarah's domain. David rarely used it. Miller bypassed the computer password in seconds. We started digging. Financial records, bank statements, communications. What we found was staggering. It wasn't just the loan she had tried to take out using my name. That was just the beginning. She was actively moving money, a lot of it. Look at this, Miller murmured, pointing to the screen. Offshore accounts, Cayman Islands, shell corporations. She was siphoning funds from Apex Realty, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Disguised as vendor payments, consultant fees, she was accelerating the company's apparent decline to cover her tracks. She's embezzled over $2 million in the last year, Miller said, his voice grim. She's bleeding the company dry, and she's using your manufactured crisis as cover. The rage I felt was cold, calculated. She was destroying my life's work, and blaming me for it. Then we found the emails, the communications between Sarah and Mark. I read them. My stomach turned. They weren't just love letters, they were battle plans. Don't worry, baby. The old man is crumbling. Once he signs the house over, we'll have the liquidity we need. Then we initiate the divorce. David is too weak to fight it. We'll be in St. Bart's by Christmas. Another email detailed her plan for me. We need to get power of attorney. I have a doctor lined up who will declare him incompetent. Then we put him in a home, a cheap one, and forget about him. The cold cruelty of it was breathtaking. She wasn't just planning to rob me. She was planning to imprison me. We had everything. The embezzlement, the affair, the conspiracy, the smoking gun. We just needed to pull the trigger. A few days later, David and Sarah invited me to the study. It felt ominous. The air was heavy with anticipation. When I walked in, Sarah was sitting behind the large oak desk. David was hovering nervously by the window, and there was someone else. A stranger. A man in a sharp suit with a clinical expression. "Robert, this is Dr. Adams," Sarah said, her voice smooth as silk. "He's a specialist in geriatric psychology." I recognized the name from the emails, the doctor she had lined up. The executioner. My blood pressure spiked. This was it, the end game. "Psychologist?" I asked, keeping my voice calm, confused. "Why? We are very concerned about you, Robert," Sarah continued, dripping with fake sympathy. "As Clara Davies mentioned, you seem confused lately. You forget things. You're not yourself." Dr. Adams watched me silently, assessing me, judging me. "I'm fine," I said. my eyes narrowing. What is this really about? It's about your well-being, Sarah said, and the well-being of the family. Dr. Adams has reviewed your recent behavior, and he agrees. It's time for you to simplify things. She produced a stack of papers from her briefcase. Legal documents. We need you to sign these, she said. I looked at the top page. Power of attorney. This gives David full control over your finances, Sarah explained, as if talking to a child, including the sale of the house and your medical decisions. If I signed this, I was finished. She could put me in a facility, drain the accounts. I would be powerless. Dr. Adams was here to witness my signature, or my incompetence. I stared at the papers. The silence in the room was heavy. David wouldn't look at me. Dr. Adams tapped his pen on his notepad. The sound was loud in the quiet room. You want me to sign away my rights? I asked, my voice rising. Based on what? That I'm wearing an old sweater and driving a used car? That your gossipy neighbor thinks I have dementia? Based on the fact that you are clearly incompetent, Sarah snapped, losing her composure. The mask fell away. The ugliness underneath was exposed. You ran a multi-million-dollar company into the ground, she shouted. You are delusional if you think you can manage anything anymore. Dr. Adams agrees. Don't you, Doctor? Dr. Adams nodded slowly. Based on my observations, Mr. Apex is showing significant cognitive decline. Incompetent. The word stunned. They had bought a doctor. They were legally erasing me. This was the breaking point. I won't sign anything, I said, standing up. My legs were shaking, but my voice was firm. Dad, please, David pleaded. His eyes were wide, scared. Be reasonable. We are trying to save what's left. Save what's left, or hand it over to her. I looked at my son. I searched for the boy I raised. I found nothing, only fear. If you don't sign this willingly, Robert, Sarah threatened, her eyes blazing, we will have you declared incompetent by the courts. Believe me, it won't be difficult. We have Dr. Adams' assessment. We have the evidence of your decline. The threat to take away my freedom was terrifying. They were willing to destroy me completely. I left the study. I walked into the hallway. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. The performance was over. It was time to bring the curtain down. I called John Harrison that night. John, I said, my voice low, steady. They tried the power of attorney play. They brought in a bot doctor, a Dr. Adams. It's time. John didn't hesitate. Are you sure, Robert? Once we do this, there's no going back. David will be caught in the crossfire. He's already a casualty, John, I said, the bitterness rising in my throat. Sarah destroyed him. Now I have to save the rest of my family. All right, John said. We're ready. Miller has the evidence. The forensic accounting is complete. The trap is set. We planned it for the following Sunday. A grand family dinner. The scene of the crime. I called David the next morning. I told him I had reconsidered. I'm ready to talk terms, I said, my voice sounding tired, defeated. About my retirement. About the house. Sarah took the bait instantly. I heard her in the background, her voice sharp with excitement. Sunday dinner, David said, relieved. We can finalize everything then. Perfect, I said. I want to make peace. I hung up the phone. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the hunter, and the hunt was coming to an end. Sunday evening arrived. I dressed carefully. The same gray sweater, the same frayed trousers. I needed them to see the man they thought I was. One last time. When I came downstairs, the dining room was set for a feast. The chandeliers sparkled. Sarah looked radiant. She was wearing a designer dress, dripping with jewelry. She was savoring the moment. Her victory lap. Robert, she said, her voice breathy. She smiled. It was the smile of a predator about to feed. I'm so glad you came to your senses. This transition will be so much smoother if we work together. Indeed, I said. I sat down slowly. I appreciate your concern for the family's future. David looked relieved. He genuinely believed this was a peaceful resolution. He had no idea he was sitting in the eye of the storm. Liam and Emma were there too. They watched me quietly, uncertain. I smiled at them. A real smile. They looked surprised. As the main course was served, Sarah pulled out her briefcase. Right on schedule. Shall we get the formalities out of the way? She said, her eyes bright. I brought the power of attorney documents and the house sale agreement. Once you sign these, we can finally breathe. She placed the folder on the table in front of me. The same folder that was meant to seal my fate. I looked at the folder. Then I looked at Sarah. She was smiling, that same cold, triumphant smile. I didn't reach for the pen. I just waited. The silence stretched. David looked nervous again. Dad, you agreed to sign. I agreed to discuss terms. I corrected him gently. But before we do that, there are a few other matters we need to address. Sarah's smile faltered. What matters? Robert, don't play games. We don't have time for this. Right on cue, the doorbell rang. Excuse me, I said, standing up. I walked to the door and opened it. It was John Harrison. He was holding a thick, leather-bound folder. Behind him stood Maria, the housekeeper, and next to her, Detective Miller. I led them back to the dining room. John, David said, surprised. What are you doing here? And Maria? I thought. He looked at Miller. Who are you? I invited them, I said, returning to my seat. My voice was different now, stronger. The rasp was gone. The stoop in my shoulders vanished. Since we are discussing legal matters, I thought it best my attorney and my investigative team were present, and Maria is here as a witness. Sarah looked annoyed, but not worried, yet. She thought John was just there to rubber stamp her victory. Fine, she snapped. The more the merrier. John, you can witness the signatures. Robert is signing over everything. John sat down at the table. He placed his folder next to Sarah's. He opened it slowly. Actually, Sarah, John said, his voice calm and professional. That's not why I'm here. The air in the room changed. The temperature dropped. John pulled out the first set of documents. This, John announced, is a forensic accounting report of the Apex Realty Group. Sarah scoffed. We know the company is failing, John. We don't need a report to tell us that Robert ruined it. The company is not failing, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. What are you talking about? David asked, confused. The stocks dipped. We lost the contracts. You said. I said what I needed to say. I interrupted him. My voice was steel. Apex Realty Group is more profitable than ever. The stock dip was manufactured. It was all a facade. Sarah stared at me, her face paling. The blood drained from her cheeks. A facade? Why? To test you, Sarah, I said. To see how you would react if the money was gone. And you reacted exactly as I feared. I looked her straight in the eye. You treated me like dirt. You tried to steal my home. You tried to have me declared incompetent. You even hired a crooked doctor, Dr. Adams, to certify the lie. That's insane, Sarah shrieked. She jumped to her feet. You lied to us? You lied to your own son? I had to know the truth, I said, looking at David. His face was shattered. The truth about what? David demanded, his voice shaking. John pulled out the next set of documents. Bank statements, transaction records, wire transfers, the truth about Sarah's activities. John continued, his voice relentless. Over the last year, Sarah, you have embezzled over $2 million from Apex Realty Group, transferred to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Detective Miller stepped forward. We have the transaction ID. We have the receiving accounts. It's felony embezzlement. David looked at the papers, his eyes wide with shock. 2 million? Sarah? Is this true? Sarah was speechless. Her mouth opened and closed. A fish gasping for air. You weren't trying to save the company, I said. You were stealing it. You had no right to spy on me. Sarah finally sputtered, her voice shaking with rage. She pointed at Miller. You hired a private investigator. I had every right to protect my legacy, I countered. But the final blow was still coming. John pulled out the final document. This, John said, is the prenuptial agreement you signed. Sarah laughed, a harsh, desperate sound. The prenup, it guarantees me a generous settlement if we divorce. Try me. You should have read the fine print, Sarah. I said coldly. There is an infidelity clause. John turned the page. The agreement states that if you engage in extramarital affairs, the agreement is null and void. You get nothing. Miller pulled out the envelope. The photographs. He spread them on the table. Sarah with Mark Sterling. In hotels. Kissing. Laughing. David gasped. He grabbed the photos, his hands shaking violently. His face was a mask of pain and betrayal. Who is this? How long? It doesn't matter, Sarah hissed, trying to snatch the photos back. It matters to the prenup, John said. We also have the emails. Where you planned to divorce David once you secured the funds. Where you planned to have Robert committed to a state home. The silence was absolute. Sarah's facade had crumbled completely. She was cornered, exposed. You set me up, she whispered, her voice venomous. I didn't force you to cheat on my son, I said, my voice booming in the silent room. I didn't force you to embezzle millions. I didn't force you to try and destroy my family. You did that all on your own, Sarah, driven by greed. I stood up, towering over her. You told my grandchildren I was a broke loser. But you are the one leaving here with nothing. I pointed to the door. You have 30 minutes to pack your things and leave this house. If you ever attempt to contact us again, we will press full charges for the embezzlement and the conspiracy regarding Dr. Adams. Sarah looked at David, desperation in her eyes. David, baby, don't let him do this. He's a monster. He tricked me. David looked up from the photos. His eyes were red, filled with tears. But his expression was hard. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. You were going to put my father in a home, he whispered. His voice was raw with pain. While you stole his money, while you slept with another man, he stood up, his voice rising. Go, just go. Sarah realized she had lost. The game was over. She grabbed her purse and stormed out of the room. The front door slammed behind her. The sound echoed through the house. A final punctuation mark on the chaos she brought. David broke down. He collapsed into his chair and sobbed. Deep, racking sobs. The sound of a man realizing his life was built on lies. I went to him. I put my hand on his shoulder. The anger I felt toward him melted away. He was my son. And he was broken. So sorry, son, I said quietly. I was so blind, Dad, he choked out. How could I let her treat you like that? I failed you. She was a master manipulator, David. But it's over now. We will rebuild. Liam and Emma were watching us. Scared, confused. I knelt down in front of them. Everything is going to be okay, I said gently. I wiped a tear from Emma's cheek. Mommy had to leave. But Grandpa is here. And your daddy is here. We love you very much. Maria stepped forward. Come, children, she said softly. Let's get some ice cream. She led them out of the room. Maria was back. I had already reinstated her, with a significant raise and the false accusations against her cleared. Loyalty was rewarded. The fallout was swift. The divorce was finalized quickly. Sarah, facing jail time for embezzlement, and the ironclad prenup, didn't fight it. She disappeared from our lives. We later heard Dr. Adams lost his medical license. David struggled. The guilt was immense. He stepped back from the company. He realized he wasn't the leader I thought he was. He started therapy. Slowly, he began to rebuild his life and our relationship. Trust, once broken, takes a long time to heal. But we had time. A year later, we were celebrating my 66th birthday. It was a very different scene. We were at my house, the one Margaret and I had shared. It was filled with warmth and laughter again. David was there, healthier, happier. His eyes were clear. He was becoming the man Margaret knew he could be. The sun was setting. I looked at my family, the real family. I felt a profound sense of peace. Wealth doesn't mean anything if you don't have the right people to share it with. Loyalty and love are the true currency. I had to become broke to see who was truly rich in character. Emma hugged me, her face smeared with frosting. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, sweetie. I looked at David. He smiled at me. A real smile. I wasn't a loser. I was a survivor. And I would protect my family. Always. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.